That's good stuff. Hey, John Barklow, everybody, right here from Sitka. I'm gonna make some of this. I think it's a
some secret blend.
You know what? I don't know what that is. I know Ed has a couple different secret ones in here, so let's see which one we like better. That's fresh off the roaster. That's not as good. You gotta let this stuff off gas for a few days before you actually. Yeah, you gotta do it like 3 days before you make it. But smell that. See if you can smell anything.
Definitely smells some chocolate.
Set this.
I think I might smell Andy's balls in here too.
Yeah. Andy stump.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Check this
chocolate
thing out.
and balls, I think, is what I smell.
Check this thing out. Did you see this yesterday? That.
Did you make that with one of your ones?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
With the moose?
Elk.
Or one of your elk?
Yeah, it was a shed I found.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and,
badass.
So that's a V42 version. You remember the OSS guys?
Absolutely.
Back in World War II?
Yeah.
So I wanted an updated, more kind of current V42, and Nick, the guy that made this, like this kid's like 20 years old. I'm not even joking.
Really?
He made this. Yeah. Isn't that fucking nuts?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Did he spin the handle too?
He did everything.
The handle
Yeah. Now let's see if it sticks. Yeah. Yeah. So John works up at Sitka. He does product development for their
Big
Western
game.
big game.
Yeah.
Why do I keep wanting to call it Western?
You can call it Western big game, Western hunting.
Yeah. We went into detail yesterday about camouflage. What would you call it? Ungulate?
Yeah, ungulates.
Yeah.
Deer, elk.
But what was the vision? Ungulate vision or?
Ungulate vision.
Yeah, ungulate vision. So
Yeah.
we went into ungulate vision, talked about camouflage, the development of camouflage, why he does what he does. Super interesting conversation. We talked a lot about everything, really, not just ungulate vision, but a little bit about hunting, about your background. Drank some coffee. We talked for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
We talked for like 2 hours. So this episode we can summarize into, we talked shit for 2 hours with Trevor and John. So yesterday we talked about ungulate vision, right? The development of camouflage, what he does for Sitka, what they do with their patterns, kind of what animals can see. We talk survival, we talk shit. We talked a lot of shit.
Definitely talked a lot of shit.
We definitely talked a lot of shit.
And maybe a little bit of coffee.
Yeah, a little bit of coffee. So 2 hours of John, Trevor, myself, talking shit, talking camouflage, talking hunting, talking survival. And at the end of the day, it's just a damn good conversation. Now we're gonna make some coffee. Welcome to Free Range American. John Barklow. Holy shit. Great to have you back, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Evan. Good to be here. In the studio, finally. As opposed to some seedy hotel room where we did it the last time.
Oh, that's Vegas. Did we do a podcast there or did we just hang out?
No, we did a podcast.
Yeah,
you don't even remember.
No, I remember.
It was like 11 o'clock at night.
That wasn't a seedy hotel. That was like the Bellagio. I was
gonna say
Venetian. Well, my standards have changed.
That was a suite.
It was a suite.
It was a suite.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
There's more than one room.
I didn't
in
know
that
what
place.
I was walking into at first. I was like,
dude,
we'll see where this goes. Yeah.
Well, so you have been designing a lot of shit for the past couple of years since you've been on the show, I think, right? You've been helping product development, a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. We talked a couple of years ago, maybe 3 now. So, and honestly, in my world, this product development world, it's so odd the way my calendar works. So as an example,
because you live in the future.
Yeah, my head's already in fall 23.
Right.
Like I'm 6 months into fall 23 development. So
he knows what you're going to hunt in fall 23.
Stuff we have coming out right now, actually stuff that hasn't even launched yet.
Right.
But in the next few months, it's so old hat to me, I've forgotten about it.
Right.
Like in some regard.
It's in the rearview mirror.
It's in the rearview mirror.
Yeah.
22's done, 23's halfway done. So yeah, it's odd. So I always, if you talk to me long enough, I'm sure I'll give up some trade secrets that I'm not supposed to talk about.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's what I want you to do.
So everybody knows John works for Sitka.
I do. Yep.
And what's your job title? Because I actually don't know.
No, the formal
What,
job
do you do
title
that?
is big game product manager. So
Big game.
refers to like mountain hunting for easy description, kind of all the technical gear.
I was explaining this the other day, which I would love to hear your definition for people, which is Western hunting. Like, what's the difference between as people define it, Western hunting and other forms of hunting?
Kind of broad brush, Western hunting kind of refers to, wide open spaces or mountains where you're kind of looking for the animal and pursuing it, right? So spot and stalk is an example. A lot of Eastern hunting is more, ambush type hunting. So you're sitting in a funnel, a pinch point, you're waiting for the animal to come to you. Western hunting is you're going into the environment after the animal. So obviously species are different, but as a general comment, that would be the difference. So it's much more physical.
Terrain oriented.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So why do they classify that, do you think, between, we'll call it Western hunting?
Oh, geography.
Is it just based on geography?
Yeah,
purely?
big wide open spaces, big mountains,
Right.
Lots of public land out west.
Right.
Whereas again, generally speaking, back east is a lot more private or smaller parcels of public. So, you're going to do yourself a disservice by wandering around a small parcel of public land and blowing the animals out, as opposed to you come out west and it's, millions of acres potentially at your disposal.
Got it.
And if you don't put yourself in that position, and so it's more of the commute is really the difference.
The hunter density plays into that too.
It can, depending on where you are, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And so because of that, the animals are different species wise, but they also act different, right? So animals, again, general comment, back east are a lot more pressured. They don't put up with a lot of human presence. Out here, in Colorado as an example, they may see, hundreds of hikers in a basin a year. And so they're not easier to hunt necessarily, but they're just wired a little different, and species has a big part of that. White-tailed deer, it sees you, that's running. A mule deer, it's probably going to, give you a little bit more of a pause.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, and when you're designing for Sitka, are you guys designing for like Western or all types of hunters?
So that's my job, is specifically for, we'll call it Western hunting.
You're doing Western big game.
Yeah. So, I've been able to take my experiences and specifically design gear for the person who's going to go into the mountains, I like to say unsupported, and kind of expose themselves to the elements, right? So we're going to be out there for several days. We might have everything on our backs. We're going to be sleeping in a little tent. And, depending on the weapon you're carrying. So as an example, it could be a bow or a rifle. You could be on a hunt. It could be a military operation. It could be a backpacking trip, right? Like, you still need the same technical quality gear. Rain is rain, snow is snow.
Right.
You might have a camouflage pattern on one, or it might be a little quieter for this, but it's basically just for going out in the mountains. And so that's kind of the technical gear that I try to build and try to solve these problems in, hopefully meaningful ways for the consumer, lighter weight, quieter, more durable, suits a certain function, things like that.
I have one question before we come back to this, but my most important question is, why do we use camouflage while we're elk hunting?
Well, I would say we use camouflage, period, for archery hunting, just to, stack as many odds in our favor as possible.
But can the animals see it? Does it blend you into your environment more appropriately for the animal?
So this is the one debate. So this is a very differentiated thing about Sitka and the way Sitka has approached camouflage. Okay. So we all know in the military that we're developing a camouflage to fool a human's eyes.
Correct.
Right. And whatever technology that we have as humans to see at night or et cetera. But the animals see differently. So science has proven animals, ungulates we'll call it, so hooved animals, split hooved animals like deer, elk, they see differently. They see in different shades. The quality of their vision is different. And so what Sitka did through its OptiFade camouflage is we said, well, we're hunting an animal's looking at us. Let's try to develop a pattern that helps break up the human outline the way the animal sees things. And so, I was able to, I certainly didn't, when I got the Sitka, they'd already had OptiFade. I was the one that helped develop subalpine, the one that's kind of become the popular one for elk hunting, mule deer hunting. And we said, okay, what's the general environment they live in? What kind of vision do they have? Best science we can get. What are the shades that they see? And then we wanted to look at that pattern under quote animal vision, right? So 20/40 vision, shades of blues and grays and blacks. What did it look like in the environment?
Do you have like animal goggles?
No, but we do have something called like ungulate vision. So it's basically just a computer program we can apply.
Seriously?
That again, that kind of blurs it a little bit, puts it in those different tones of color. And then so that you figure that out.
Right.
But there's another part to this. And so that's a commercialization part because humans aren't going to buy it. If I came up with the next great camouflage pattern.
It's this color?
Exactly. That was shades of pink, which in the desert, actually pink is a great color. I think this was the debate in the first Gulf War.
Right.
But I'm never going to sell that. Nobody's ever going to buy it. No hunter, worth their salt's going to buy that. So then it's a combination of trying to take the ungulate vision and the human perception for commercialization and put something in a really meaningful package that kind of does both things. And so kind of put the window dressing, so to speak, on the pattern.
Right.
So it does matter. When we were developing this, we would have, I'd put on this little suit that had the pattern on it. We'd go out into these different environments. The photographer would take pictures and then we'd put it back in the computer program with this ungulate vision, right? And I knew we were finally where we needed to be when I would stand. We never stood behind anything. We'd stand in front of something. Photographer would try to focus on us, take the picture, and he could not differentiate between myself and the environment behind me through the viewfinder. We had to have a guy in civilian clothes, so to speak, stand in front. They'd focus on him. He'd step out of frame. They'd take the picture.
Wow.
So I knew we were getting close. But then in our testing, because it doesn't matter, right? We wanted to work on animals. When we were able to have these experiences, and I think maybe some of us have had them where, when you get that close to an animal and you can kind of see their eyes, right? The whites of their eyes, so to speak. And you're like, I kept having these experiences where I said, the animal's not looking at me, he's looking through me. And I'm able to get away with some movement that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to get away with in the past. And it's not because I'm a great hunter. It's actually, just the opposite. But then other people started having those experiences.
Yeah.
And kind of telling me the same thing, like, hey man, like I had this thing. And I'm like, wow, okay, so it's not just me.
Right.
This is a very long-winded answer of telling you, yeah, it does matter. And if you want to try to stack, every odd in your legal advantage, then, camouflage, or at least the right kind of camouflage, can definitely have a benefit.
I'll tell you what, last year when I was mule deer hunting, it almost scared me because I stepped out behind a tree in broad daylight, not in the wood line, out of the wood line, and a doe and a group of does was 10 yards away from me. The lead one looked at me and I just stood stock still. She stood up and just did one of these and huffed and stomped and did that for about a minute and looked away, and I just slipped away and they didn't go anywhere. Like that thing knew something was there because I moved. But when I stood still, she did what you said because I was wearing mask and everything. And she looked basically right through me.
Yeah.
Like, what? Something's there, but it's not there.
Yeah.
Like, what's happening? There's a ghost.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild.
Yeah. It's, as you know, it's still not easy, right? Especially with a bow, like to get that close to anything. So we're just trying to try to put some, the animals got almost every advantage. So we're trying to just help ourselves a little bit.
So why not so for instance, when you look at your patterns across the board, are you making different colors for seasons because of the commercialization, or are you making them for the specific ungulate? So whitetail, like your whitetail line, is that pattern and those colors, are they geared towards whitetail, or are they or is it more the season and the commercialization?
No, it's a great question. And so really what matters to the animal. So there are some colors that show up. So blues is an example.
Blues show up.
Blues show up is this is what the science tells us, is very vibrant colors to, say, a deer.
Really?
So they'll almost glow in the dark, so to speak, to a deer. So you want to try to stay away from certain colors.
Right.
But really what matters, that aside, is the shades or the tones between them. So as an example, in subalpine, you have a white color.
Yep.
And you have a black color. So you have one color at each end of the spectrum, and then you have three other shades in between there. And those differences in colors are what adds depth or not. And then you want to make sure that they're not in that spectrum they can see. So that's important, in the amount. So the macro and the micro, we talk a lot about. So that's the science part of it. But then to answer your second question, that commercialization aspect, then we have to go back, you're right, and say, okay, the human needs to feel comfortable wearing this. They need to believe this because they don't see like a deer.
Right.
And they want to blend into their environment.
Right.
And so you have to go back and say, okay, if we're going to hunt sheep in timber, we want it green. If we're going to hunt sheep above timberline, we want it gray. Yeah. If we're going to hunt white-tailed deer in the rut where leaves start falling off the trees, we want more, grays and browns and things like that. So it's this constant, and anytime you're doing product development, and I'm sure that can be for, that bow or coffee or the product I make, you're always trying to make thoughtful compromises because you can't get everything, right? And so you write design priorities down. What is the most important? So you solve for that, and you go to number 2, then you go to number 3, and you may only get, my goal is to always get the top 3 done. 4 and 5 may not be able to get done, or may not be able to get done to your satisfaction, but you just start solving the problems from the most meaningful down.
Yeah.
So anyways, camouflage is a weird one because, not to demean our product or anybody else's, but at the end of the day, I mean, let's be honest, fellas, it's a fashion show.
I mean,
what I like and what you like may be different. And if I have confidence in it, then right.
And what's the Fred Bear quote? Like, your best camouflage is sitting still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
and I mean, how right is that?
Obviously, you have to keep the wind in your face and all those kind of things.
I'm just joking.
I was going to say, I'll pretend I didn't hear that.
Everybody's ears just burned.
Yeah, but with like whatever you think, I would say that Sitka is the only one with their Optifade patterns that have tried to approach it from
what's Optifade mean?
The deer's perspective. I think it's just a term they came up with years ago to explain the science. It's a marketing name to identify the science.
More window dressing.
Well, I think that's the thing is like, how much of this is commercialization versus like no shit facts based on, your ungulate vision, or like no shit, you're looking at it from the perspective of the animal. Is it like 50-50? So
I would tell you, as far as I know, Sitka is the only one that's approached it from the science of the animal's vision. Okay. So let's start there.
Got it.
I don't know if I can tell you a percentage. I would say from what I've done and the patterns I developed, 75% of it is science.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to solve first.
Okay.
Once you solve that, quite frankly, picking the colors in the spectrum to make it commercially viable is the easy part. Right.
That seems easy to me.
That's the easy part.
That's the easy part.
It's the science. So,
Humans
I can't,
easy.
Yeah, I can't speak for everybody else's pattern, but I do know that we're the only ones that approach it from the animal's vision, right? So we have a deer biologist. Again, the guy's been doing this for 40 or 42 years. Like, he's on staff.
Yeah.
And like, that's all he does.
Really?
And they study rods and cones and all, and I don't understand half of it, but so again, this is what we're trying to build it off of.
So when you look at the difference between, do you know how an elk sees and a deer? Do you know the difference between those?
So they have studied white-tailed deer the most because white-tailed deer are the most prevalent, animal, ungulate in North America. And so that's where most of the science is. And then they look at, again, through biopsy, autopsy, of elk and mule deer and sheep, and they can look at and extrapolate. So best we know, mule deer and elk are, if not identical, very similar to a white-tailed deer.
Interesting.
Sheep are a little different. Different species start to get a little different, like bears, so now that's not even an ungulate. So they see different.
Yeah.
And again, we can't actually see through that animal's eyes. So there has to be some extrapolation of information.
Yeah.
But at least we're trying to solve for X. And I think that's kind of the cool thing that, Sitka's done and, that I've been kind of, interested in is you try to solve for these white spots. Like, what is the problem? And let's try to solve for that problem. Like, what problem do we have? Well, we can't get close because these animals see us coming. Yeah. Okay, well, why? Well, if you don't take a step back and look at it, you're going to go, well, that doesn't, like, I can see that, or I can't see that. How much stuff we looked under IR, and you're like, geez, man, we just glow in the dark.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, so now we need to do some things that you may not even see visually, but all of a sudden make you invisible, so to speak, under IR. Right. And so it's kind of the same thing. The difficult thing is we're just not a deer, so we have to just. But that's why it's important to look at
and listen to this kind of stuff where you guys are looking at it from the science, right? As opposed to say, I'm going to throw out the hunting fad that I see now, which is solids.
Yeah.
Right?
What do you mean?
People hunting in solids. Like,
yeah,
it's a fad.
Really?
Oh yeah. There's lots of people that are pushing, it's fine. You can get just as close in solids.
No, I've heard that. That's why I was asking John.
Well,
I've heard that narrative. That's why
it's just, based on the science. And granted, I've known John for a while. Like, it's so much. It's a fad, and you can see it's a fad because the joke of granddad hunting in a flannel. Well, he hunted in a flannel because a flannel breaks up your shape.
Yeah, and
it works.
And that's also all granddad had, right? So as soon as as an example, Marines came back from the Pacific and they had the old duck hunter camouflage,
and it worked.
And people started wearing it, right? They saw the value.
Yeah,
I would agree with you, Trevor, that
it's a fad.
And I would use the same term. Like, I would say fad. A lot of us have hunted in solids over the years. Again, call it a fashion show, call it what you want. It's a bit of a fad now, tied to, I think, social media and ego.
Right.
In the sense that, oh, well, you went and, got to 20 yards and killed a mule deer in camouflage, and I was able to do it in solids. Like, I know some guys that are good enough that the animal never sees them coming. I need a little bit more of an advantage if I can get it.
Yeah, I think Aaron.
But the thing is, like,
could probably hunt in just about anything.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
But then the thing is, you always want to stack the deck, right? So, like, you look at somebody like South, right? He gets up within stalking distance and he takes his boots off and he covers himself in camouflage and puts a ghillie hat on top of his head.
Right.
That guy could probably sneak up on a deer in jeans and a t-shirt and be just fine. But why would you do that?
Yeah.
It's silly. Like, why not? If the equipment's available.
Last week in my running shorts with some boots that I'm trying to break in for my bear hunt in Alaska.
A blind?
No. Guess how many turkeys I saw?
0.
Yeah, 0. I did. Well, I was out running and I was like, there's turkeys everywhere and I could do...
Might as well. Double down.
It didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter. They weren't running away from me. I sat there and watched this Tom. I didn't have a shotgun or anything with me. He was just like hanging out next to me. He's almost chasing me off. I'm like, I'm just going to go out in my running shorts. I don't need any cool camo, stupid ass turkey.
Or not.
My question, I guess, is like, so if you got your ungulate camouflage over here, what about what about your predators, your bears? So how do they see? What's their difference?
Yeah, so there really hasn't, as far as I know, there hasn't been as much science on that. So, we currently, as an example, don't build a pattern for a bear.
There's probably not a lot of
as a general rule, because I know you're going on this bear hunt, like as a general rule, I think Cole would agree with me, like bears don't see as well. So if you look at the animal, right?
Yeah.
Big nose, small ears, smaller eyes. So nose is going to be the biggest sense that they have.
Right.
And having hunted bears, you can get away with more movement. in that regard, but there just hasn't been the science because people don't want to put the money into it. Like the white-tailed deer is a big industry, right? A lot of money.
How big of an industry is it?
I don't have any. I've heard some numbers, but I don't recall. But it's ridiculous, right? Like how many?
It's billions.
Hundreds. Yeah, I would say it's probably in the billions.
Wow.
With the number of, it's the largest segment in hunting in North America, right? Is the white-tailed deer hunter. So yeah,
and is that
gets the most attention.
Do you think that's is that the ambush crowd, the guys that are doing?
Yeah, the tree stands. Yeah, okay. that kind of thing. Ground blinds. Mm-hmm. Just because the animal is so tuned in, it's so aware, right? Yeah, and we talk about these smaller pieces of property where you might have to slip in on the corner and like just hope the wind's in your favor and they come by you, right? But if you just go traipsing around, like let's just say we would after a turkey who has, as far as I know, if they do have a nose, they don't smell anything through it. You don't have to worry about the wind on a turkey. You don't have to worry about the wind on a human, right? But a deer, a bear, that is the number one thing. If you don't, no matter what the camouflage is, if you don't beat the nose on whatever animal, you're not getting close.
Gotcha.
You're not going to get close. But yeah, there has been I think people are getting weary of, I call it the Camo Wars.
Yeah.
And I think people are getting weary over, every little startup brand nowadays makes their own proprietary camo. Where it used to be back in the day, if we were going to start a hunting brand, we'd pick a mossy oak or Realtree. Like those are the two kind of dominant powerhouses in that space.
Which, to be quite honest, I can't tell the difference between the two. If you were to put them right in front of me, I'd be like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so it's getting to the point now where every startup has their own proprietary camouflage. A lot of them are made by the same kind of design firm. And anyways, so I think people are just getting weary of that. And as an example, so if I really like a product from Sitka, and then I like another product from two other competitors, right? Nobody wants to mix that camo. Remember the fashion statement, right?
True multicam.
I want my camouflage to match. It's a
fashion statement.
It is.
Wow.
So when you have more solid colors, I could say, well, I like Sitka and their subalpine pattern. I'm going to buy all their clothes, but I really like brand X's, backpack as an example, right? So I'm going to buy, the Kafaru backpack in solid, which is going to fit my camouflage clothing from Sitka. And that's going to be a good synergy. Where if it was just in another pattern, I may choose not to buy that because it's not going to match. Wow. I mean, and I think that confidence in the field, no matter what we're doing, I think that helps. I think that's important.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the trend. And I think, we sell a lot of our hunting clothes in solid colors. And I think that, I don't think it's too much to give away that trend will continue. In the next few months, you'll see that kind of expand for us.
What's the name of my favorite pants? What's
the Apex pants.
Do you guys have that one in solid colors?
Not yet, but not to give too much away, but I'm working on kind of a redesign of that. And right? No, you'll have a pair. I'm gonna need those. So when I was developing that, I have a pair in, they're like a lead color, and I had like two other pairs.
So he has a pair.
That I got. I have a pair.
But you don't have a pair.
But I got on field testers. And so one of my guys,
is that like a fans only thing?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you weren't a fan at the time.
Is it field testers? That's the fans.
Field testers
unite.
FTF.
But this guy said, this is my favorite pair of cold weather running pants, period.
Jay?
No, Jay was shooting photos of Kiviak in Colorado.
Weather running pants?
Yeah.
Like so he's wearing them to run it.
They were running in them.
Well, you can do whatever you want.
Running and riding mountain bikes.
For sure.
And I knew, so freedom of movement, like breathability, like everything, moisture management, everything I wanted was there.
Yep.
It didn't matter what you were doing, right? As long as you were physically active, the pant was going to perform.
That's why I like.
That's why you want them in solid.
I like that. Yeah. That pant, and that's why when I wear them, people are always asking me why I'm wearing camouflage. Like, am I going hunting? I'm like, no, these are exceptionally comfortable pants.
Yep.
It just so happens.
So we're going to be getting some. Yeah. So the goal is I'm going to make them in probably several solid colors.
That it would be really nice. Just for me specifically, outside of anybody else.
Well, you may see some in a proto here sooner than later. But
I got some new prototype pants in the mail a couple weeks ago that you've been working on. Those are pretty. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
actually going to come out here. I think they've moved the date a few times, but sometime in April, that pant's going to come out.
So that's going to be out in April.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, no, this month it's going to be out.
Those are cool.
Yeah, well, then let's just talk about it.
No, we can talk about
we can
that.
talk about it, and then we'll release this after. So let's talk about it.
No, I don't think it's, I don't think it's given too much away because,
It's not like there aren't a million pictures of.
Yeah, exactly. Because John Dudley, who's one of our ambassadors and athletes. So, he's been a great friend over time, right, for all of us. And so he had this idea for what we're calling the range pant, right? The Sitka range pant. And it's specifically designed for, archery hunters and people that like love to go and just shoot their bows, shoot these total archery challenges, shoot in their backyard.
And not have to wear a quiver.
Exactly. So it's this pant where, we've been able to take John's input and build in, a hip quiver on the right thigh, and then all these extra pockets where you can have, every accessory you would need out on the rangefinder, Allen wrenches, if you're shooting for competition, a scorecard and a pencil, your cell phone, et cetera, right? All this kind of stuff. And anyways, we built this pant, with John's input, and it'll be out this month. And I think it's going to, I think it's going to dominate these TAC events for sure.
My favorite part of that pant, what do you think it is, Trevor? I like the, 1/2-inch tubular nylon.
Yep. On the left thigh.
On the left thigh that allows you to pull out and stabilize your bow so you can, so you can range and glass, right? It's
so
nice.
Right.
See,
so the intent
I've only seen the original R&D version that he had up at the first TAC there.
Yeah.
So I hadn't seen any closer to completion ones.
So, John,
so I didn't
coming
know
from
that
this
was a thing.
Obviously hyper competitive, field archery world, when you're trying to glass a target and you're trying to see little scoring rings and, or you're trying to get a range from a distance, if it's windy, and you can pull this little,
thing out,
this loop
like on your pack,
this loop of nylon, right?
Yeah.
You can drop the bottom cam in. So now you have stabilization, and you can put either binoculars or rangefinder on the top limb, and you have this nice, steady, almost monopod.
Yeah.
And it's sick. And then if you don't want that, if you never want to use it, or you're going to wear those pants to the bar right afterwards, it tucks away. The flap comes down over the quiver, and you don't even know you're wearing anything but just an awesome, right, like soft shell pant.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and those are small details that matter. Like, cover it up, but it doesn't look ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. So
no bullshit.
We're excited to have those.
That matters.
Excited to have those come out here.
Are they going to come in camo patterns too?
So they're just going to start out in the lead color, so kind of opposite of the Apex. But
hey, I don't know.
Yeah, John wore them all last year, I think, in the TAC events. I wore them a couple times. Like, I was a little leery of, because I always like to show off the stuff before it's commercially available. But obviously, he got a huge audience, and so people knew it was coming. They didn't know the name or anything, but I got to shoot a couple TAC events
he wore
with
them
it.
like that first time he got hands on them. It
so
was hilarious.
I would think we'd see a lot of them at the events this year.
I hope so.
Once it, because I don't know when San Antonio, when that TAC event
next
is.
Week.
Next week.
Yeah. So I knew we wanted to have them out kind of before that,
but the bulk of the events are June, July.
For sure.
Yeah.
So.
But just supply resource constraints with the virus and all that stuff.
Oh yeah. I keep forgetting about that.
Right.
Yeah,
well, it's weird. It's just like different things are affected, raw materials or shipping or whatever it is. You know?
I mean, what were you saying is affected in Southeast Asia right now?
Thread. Thread to sew things together. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's like nobody, you don't think about it.
No.
It's not at the top of your list of, it's just kind of a thing, right?
I made the same
factories buy thread, they sew your shit together and it's done. And they're like, yeah, we don't have thread. Now, we've weathered that storm pretty well, but as a general rule, it's pretty wild. It's a shortage. Yeah. But yeah, I was talking to a broadhead company the other day and they're like, yeah, we just made a bunch of stuff, but we're not sure we're going to have enough raw material to make, we don't know how many more we're going to be able to make the rest of the year. Knife company. We talked to a knife company and they're like, yeah, we can't get ball bearing steel. Like ball bearing steel. Like that's
weird.
Got to be pretty prevalent.
Pretty
it's all ball bearings.
Like it's all ball bearings.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows that.
Everybody knows that.
So.
Well, I do now.
That's a quote from Fletch.
Oh, one of the best movies
one
ever.
Of the best movies or series, actually, because he made multiple. Like, I like to think that Chevy Chase in the 80s is
Your spirit
the
animal.
late 70s and 80s. That's my spirit animal. Just because
We figured this out a couple weeks ago.
We figured it out a few days ago.
It's real. It's real.
Whereas I had built my entire life around the character in Caddyshack that is Chevy Chase
Ty.
and that Ty. Where my entire life is just Ty. Aloof, not really giving a fuck about anything. Just like,
Just
kind of doing.
Just putting at night.
Timmy, Tommy, it's Dan. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Timmy, Tommy, whatever, man. Yeah. Well, I'm excited, man. I'm excited to get those. I'm excited to get those pants, which I already have a pair, but to get them out and actually use them because I was under very, very strict
orders.
Yes.
You're like, why
So
am I
he
being
came-
given orders? John is in all the pictures with them.
Well, I came and John texted me like, hey, you're going to get a package. Do not wear said package at any point in time. Like I was under very, very strict guidance.
You're like a child on
To
Christmas.
not-
Here's your present. Don't open it.
Well, I had to hem them. I had to tell my wife.
They're a little,
like,
I had
like
to-
6
they're
inches.
32, so they're a little bit baggy, but that's all right. It's not a big deal.
Well, last year, I think Big Sky Tack, you had asked me for those. And I was like, I don't know if we have any right now, like in your size.
But
we had a few
Just had to
pairs.
hem
But
it. Super
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
So my other question is, if you and Aaron hang out together, you and Aaron Schneider.
Yep.
What happens? Do the two of you spin each other up into a hurricane of shit, of anger, like a anger storm, or what? So what happens in those circumstances, or is it kind of a negative plus a negative equals
a positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, just unicorns and rainbows come out of that room.
Yeah,
all
what
of
happens?
a sudden, is it just
Yeah.
magic?
Yes, I did a podcast with him. The last one I did with him, I almost blacked out like Will Ferrell when he was debating in old school. And he's like, he wakes
I
up
don't know
and
what
he's
happened.
like, yeah, what was that? I don't know what happened. And I said stuff on that podcast. I mean, I remember saying it, but I listened to it again and I was working out at the time and I
Right.
damn near dropped weights on my feet. Like I was laughing so hard. I was like, I couldn't believe I said, but my point is when Aaron and I get together, we basically fall back to like, the E5s we were in the military and just like, everything's on the table for discussion.
It's a dangerous space.
But I would tell you it's really productive.
Yeah.
Like he's we obviously align a lot on a lot of things.
How does
and,
that work with Kafaru? Because they obviously make a ton of gear that you guys make as well.
Yeah, there is some crossover. He is such he's a really creative person. He's really valuable for me personally, right? As a product manager trying to get feedback from somebody who spends, my God, probably 200 days a year.
Dude, he spends a shit ton of time
hunting
in the field.
And they don't make clothing per se. They make a couple things like I think they make a puffy jacket. I think they make a sleeping bag.
They make some super niche pieces.
Yeah, I would say packs is kind of where we cross over, but our pack offering is so different from theirs.
Right.
But I think what it does is provides a consumer a choice.
Right.
So my pack is designed differently than his, and we talk about things we're gonna do. But I would say we have far more in common than we don't, and so we just see it as a force multiplier. Like he's just a great addition to the team,
Mm-hmm.
and proprietary stuff we don't necessarily divulge to each other,
Sure.
but that's fine. Like because I think what we do is we do things just slightly different enough that it gives the market choices, which is good, right? And I don't think you could make a bad decision, but it depends on your personality, how you use stuff.
No, I mean, I see it like they operate in the same ecosystem, not the same lane.
No, I could see it. I was more interested from the perspective of how, which you kind of explained it, which is like, because I see Sitka, or I shouldn't say Sitka necessarily. I see you and Aaron doing things. And I'm like, wonder if anybody has issue with that on either side.
Well, so first of all, fuck them if they do.
That's fair.
Because he's a friend, but he's super valuable, I think, from a business perspective. But we were just hunting together.
You were in Texas, right?
We were in Texas, right?
Yeah.
And it was awesome because we're out there, walking around the mountains, getting stuck all over with cactus and stuff. But it gave us 6 days of opportunity to, we were talking about that Apex pant as an example. It's like, hey, if we were going to make this better, like what would we do? And like, what's your experience? And, and so just absolutely invaluable, right? From a product development standpoint, to have people like that, and just run it through, the filter of that I've got.
Yeah.
And you can end up getting some cool stuff, And so if you want to sit there and say, man, if you're not like completely on board with everything we do, or you're not completely on board with everything, Kafaru does, like, fuck you, you're kind of off the team.
Right.
I just think you start to limit yourself.
Mhm.
Like you just close down that aperture a little bit too much. I mean, obviously I'm not going to go and bring somebody in from another, direct competitor.
Sure. But I mean, I do that.
But I don't see him as that. I see him as a force multiplier. He's trying to do, clearly he is part primate and caveman.
He's probably got 10 times the normal Neanderthal DNA.
Yeah, exactly. And so
person.
when people look at him, I think they can be intimidated. But the reality is that guy is so generous with his time. He's so generous with his information, and he's really just trying to help people out.
Right.
Yeah.
How could you not want to be a part of that, right? I mean, he's been doing it forever, like long before, you and I were in the public eye,
Sure.
He was out there doing these things. So, he's kind of earned those stripes.
Yeah. And he's such a great guy. Like, he was out here, did our podcast a few weeks ago.
Oh yeah.
And he'll text me randomly. He does stuff with Mike Glover and Heber.
Yep.
And it's so interesting because I was thinking about this the other day. So our friend network is so, it's fairly, it's expanding, but it's very insular. So Mike and I worked at the agency together, right? So, and now he's in Heber.
Mm-hmm.
So he's running Fieldcraft, obviously. And then, you're up in Big Sky. Jocko's up in you're up in Bozeman. Jocko's in Big Sky, and all these guys, like, we're getting a more and more, I think, eclectic group of people.
Oh yeah,
and we're all kind of
with like mutually supporting fields of fire. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
360 degrees. Yeah.
No, it's. I was
great.
So Trevor and I were talking before this started, and it's like, listen, when you're in the service and you're kind of stuck with guys, right? Like, you don't get to choose necessarily. And it works, right? It works great. But after, when you get out and you have a choice, and seeing what people do, seeing what their interests are, and then how certain people and personalities begin to come back together.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's been so fascinating over this last 6 or 7 years, since I've been out, and just kind of more of this stuff has become mainstream. Super fascinating, right? How that, like, gravity kind of pulls people back into the same
Well, and
orbit.
guys are like pre-vetted, but then they get re-vetted.
Yeah.
Once you float back in, it's like, all right, well, do you have some like
because you didn't
weird
get
thing
to
that
pick
you're
them
into?
last time.
Or
Yeah.
are you like, I had to work with you last time. Like, are you like break glass in case of war type of dude that I don't really want around my kids?
Yeah. No, it's true.
It's
true. I was talking to my buddy. I was talking to my buddy yesterday that he was the founder of Softfleet. And he and I've talked probably every other month for 5 years now. And he's a great guy. And I was like, hey, are you guys going to participate in our adaptive? I called him, I was like, do you guys want to participate in our adaptive athlete shoot? And he's like, oh, fuck yeah. We'll get somebody out there. Of course. Like, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be super fun. The intent obviously is to raise awareness and raise money, but also is to get a group of guys together where we know we're going to have fun, and there isn't going to be, a bunch of weird agenda-based stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, come out, throw some arrows, raise some money.
There's no ego measuring.
No, I don't think so. And if there was,
I think that's been done a long time ago.
Yeah. Just like when we were at Deseret and we were up there with like, Jocko and all those other weirdos up there. Nobody's really...
what, dude, from the outside looking in, somebody would have looked at that camp and said, holy Christ, how does that work with all those like big personalities and what people may foresee as big egos? Like, and the reality was, it was nothing but a group of friends all hanging out with the same, basically kind of personalities.
Dude, the Moose Hunt 2 years ago was the same way.
Yeah.
You'd look at that and go, no.
Well,
that'll never work. That'll never work.
So Small World... My friends were down here 2 weeks ago or a week ago, Ed and Kay.
Yeah.
And they were in bear camp with Rogan and Cam up in Canada and Adam Greentree. So Rogan, Cam, and Adam Greentree were all in the same bear camp with my two friends that I've known for over a decade. He trained my last German short hair pointer, did field trials. He just retired from the Idaho State Police. He's an awesome guy. But then I knew those guys way back. And then they knew Greentree. Greentree stays at their house.
Okay.
They knew Greentree and all these other guys before I had to.
Yeah, because I was going to say that had to be years ago.
Yeah.
Right? That they did that.
Yeah. And they're like,
Oh, yeah.
it's like, and yeah, so here's Ed and Kay telling me how their experience with like Cam and Greentree and Rogan. And they're like, Rogan is like the coolest guy ever. He's like making fun of everybody. And it's like, yeah, that seems about right. That smells about right. Yeah. That's like, you know, I think that's the thing about, you know, who we're doing business with and how we're spending our time with recreating is like everybody pretty much gets along. And we all know each other.
Yeah.
So like a phone call
Everybody
away.
has everybody's number.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super weird. Because it's like as you get older, even the people that you wouldn't think were connected, they're connected. So like the bow rack out in Oregon, like they know my co-CEO Tom from some other
You're
thing.
shitting me.
No, like
Really?
it's weird, man. It's like it's such a weird.
Wow.
Like
Well,
it seems
hey,
like everybody knows
We
each
all
other.
know it's about the network, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And but to me it's fascinating, right? And it's kind of as I've you know, whatever, like maybe come out of my shell and a little bit more in the public eye, like and just talking to humans again. It's fascinating to me, like how many of us who I don't know, we've all had these common likes. You know, at first it was only the military, but fuck, it's so much broader than that now. And like I say, this gravitational pulls like brought us all back into the same.
Well, yeah, Davin gave you your first job at
Davin,
Beyond.
Yeah, Tom Davin and Rick Elder.
Right.
And but so this is a fucking funny. So I got to tell this story.
Okay.
So
Yes.
so I'm like I'm punching like I've had enough. I getting too old, can't keep up. I'm like I got to get out of the military. So so I'm like I don't know what I want to do. I think I want to be in the hunting industry. So I tried to pursue that. Anyways, I'm getting to the point. I'm like, it's imminent. And so this guy Rick reaches out and he says, who's a friend of mine from the service, and he's like, hey man, like I got this job Beyond Clothing, you'd be perfect for it. Like basically building all these like crazy, one-off uniforms for different units to do stuff. So
Crazy
like
stuff.
we were talking about,
Yeah.
like I don't give a shit if it only lasts one op.
I don't care what the
Like,
cost is,
that's
make
all-
it happen.
And I'm like,
Right.
that's perfect for me.
Yeah,
Like, oh
sounds
fuck
awesome.
yeah. Like I'll build unicorns all day long. So anyways, like this is a done deal. So I'm thinking it's a done deal. So my wife and I moved down here to Salt Lake, and I fly out to Seattle, and I'm thinking it's a done deal. And I get there and whatever the first day looks like. And Rick says, hey, I want you to meet, Tom Davin. He's the CEO of 511. 511 owns Beyond,
Right.
And so Tom and I sit on a couch, like two old friends. We sit on a couch and we start talking. And I realize within a minute of this conversation, I'm like,
You don't have this job.
I'm like, fuck me. He's interviewing me right now for this job. And if I fuck this up, I'm out. I'm out of my ass.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, so it went from like casual conversation to like, uh-oh.
Everything puckered
Fucking-
up.
Yeah. Starting to like, and I'm like, fuck it. What? Just, he's an old Marine, just like,
Sure.
just, be honest. And so anyways, my point is like, I credit Tom and Rick with giving me my first opportunity out of the service. Right. And the reality is all of us need that first opportunity. Either, could be a banker giving you money for your first business or, your first job or whatever. So anyways, it's super cool because I'm down there talking to Tom today and, we've stayed in touch, but,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, Tom, been, come a long way in 7 years. How about you? Both of us really.
Yeah. Tom went back. So he was like, he's been digressing. That's what he's been doing. He was at a really hyper
I was
functioning
like, how did you find yourself here?
company. It's like, now he's going back. Now he needs now he needs help, I guess.
Everybody needs that first leg up, though. I mean, I have Andy to thank for pointing me at Evan. He's like, hey, man, have you met Evan? We were at the at the archery thing.
We were at the archery
at Bob
thing.
Fromm's.
Oh shit, that's
Yeah.
right.
And
Yeah,
Andy's like, "Do you know
Sandy.
Evan?" I'm like, "No, I don't." And he goes, "He's making coffee around the corner." And you were sitting like
Oh, I didn't know
cross-legged
that
on the
was-
floor.
I didn't know
You
that was
came
the
around,
first
you're
time
like-
you guys had met.
"You should do something for
Yeah,
us." Like,
I was-
okay.
I was because George,
Yeah.
I was hand grinding coffee, and we were just shooting the shit, and I was like
Yeah.
literally on the floor of
Making
performance,
coffee.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
making coffee
In like a corner.
Yeah, in a corner.
And Andy's like, "You should go talk to him and get some coffee too."
Yeah,
That was a whirlwind.
That's where
24
everybody,
hours for me.
because everybody was there.
It's the three of us.
Yeah,
It was
Andy.
Andy, Rogan, Dudley.
Yep.
Jocko,
Jocko.
From, and some
Which-
other like ancillary people.
But you remember? You
Just
remember when we
bananas.
went, did you go to the wind tunnel with us?
No.
Oh god.
Okay, so when we went to the wind tunnel,
No, I blew out that.
With
like,
Jocko and his
yeah.
kids.
dude, Jocko
Holy shit.
free fall is one of the fucking
Exactly like you'd
funniest
think.
things. Yes,
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
trying to.
It's like an anvil with arms.
He's trying to like control and bundle. Like what it reminds me of is he's trying to bundle the air and throw it out of his way.
Put it in
you
a
know what I
headlock.
mean?
Granted, his son Thor was
yeah.
like that, but double.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was so.
I forgot about that.
He was in the wind tunnel, and I was like, oh, and I came around the corner, and I was like, it's so cool seeing guys for the first time, and I was like, wait a minute, that's Jocko. And I'm like, you're not gonna
Win.
win
No.
against air. It's kind of like a whole, maybe a samurai philosophy type scenario where you need to really,
It's one of my favorite places to see guys that are from the special operations community.
because they're
'Cause-
control freaks.
Not just control freaks, but they're usually hyper physical.
Yeah.
And then they see like Mr. Hippie sandal wearing weirdo who gets in the tunnel and does flips and shit. And then they're like, all right, Nick, come on in. And that guy goes in like, yeah, gets in there and boom, into the glass right on the other
This
side.
thing.
What happened? That was exactly what we had going on there.
But Jocko's free fall certified, and
Oh, yeah.
and he's. I mean,
Gravity
it wasn't
mainly
that
takes
bad.
care of it.
Wasn't that bad? But I was like, it was so exactly what you would think it would be.
Yeah.
Like seeing Jocko,
He was super.
trying to.
He was stable.
Yeah, he was very
He was
stable.
very stable. Stayed
Like a
right in the
brick.
middle. Yeah,
Like a brick. Like,
with arms.
Yeah, with like a brick with arms. Perfect.
Like
Yeah.
Newton's apple falling
He
from
was
the
just-
tree. Yeah.
And I think Dudley, that was his first time.
It was, but he
Yeah.
could touch all the walls, so that wasn't fair.
Yeah, he just
Right.
kind of like
He just stretched
like,
out.
Stretched out his entire like 10-foot wingspan of his arms.
That's right, because Andy and I were teaching him to skydive.
that was the
that
weekend.
the same
yeah.
week.
week.
Yeah,
Yeah. And I was going somewhere. I can't remember.
That was
I like,
hilarious.
in, and then I was out.
that was quite a week.
Which is where we're going. The next time you and I are going to be down in San Diego.
Mhm.
I wonder if we're going to do this thing with Jim Woods. You remember? Do you know Jim?
we were talking.
We were talking
about
about it.
Yeah. So we're going to be doing this
Very cool
whole
thing.
free fall thing, which is cool because I think we're going to have to do like jump trips. I think we'll have to arrange and do jump trips where we go and we do like a week just fucking jumping our asses off in different
This
places.
is quickly turning into a team here.
I'm not
We're doing jump
I'm not
sustainment.
about to like jump off anything like an antenna or anything like that. I'm not about to do that yet. But I might have a deal cooking
Yeah, but the
close to a
workup for
bridge
this,
where people jump off.
but the workup for this sounds awesome.
No, because we'll be able
That
to
was
get a
our-
helo and do elevators
Mm-hmm.
and just jump our asses off. I'm bringing a couple other guys out from former military buddies of mine. They're going to do the elk hunt this year up in Utah. We'll do a bunch of elevator jumps, get some packers out there, have a blast, like cook some barbecue.
Enjoy life.
Just genuinely enjoy life.
You're allowed.
I think so.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Like we shouldn't have to apologize for that
No.
anymore, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Would you be in on that?
No.
Why not?
I'll tandem you.
Or static line him. Just
No, I want to put him on the front of me.
oh yeah.
That is
No?
never going to happen. Not with him.
So now going back to you, John, before we start, like, we're all over the place on this one. Going back to you, you've done a lot of hunting, and one of the things that really pisses me off about you is you like to pass on moose. that you could have shot?
I love that you brought this up because we were talking about this about 25 minutes ago.
So Trevor and I didn't pass. Like, honestly, the thing that I shot was pretty small. It looked like the moose looked like deer antlers, to be fair.
Yeah.
But you're after a certain type of moose when you kill one, right?
Well,
He was after my moose.
He was after you.
I've never killed one, so let's like get that on the record.
But you had an opportunity to shoot one.
Yeah, I did, but it just wasn't what I was.
You wanted
looking
something
for.
bigger.
I mean, so back up a couple days. So
Okay.
Yes.
well, let's back up a couple years. So I lived in Alaska.
Start at the beginning.
Never got the opportunity to shoot a bull moose, right? And
You were there for a while, right? How long were you in Alaska?
And I only like I think it was 13 years. I was trying
You
to add it
lived
up.
there 13 years?
Yeah, on Kodiak.
He shot 0 moose.
On Kodiak.
Yeah.
And you shot 0 moose.
Well, there was no moose on
I
Kodiak.
know, but how did you?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Deer, bear, mountain goat, other things, right?
You've shot a lot
and
of
again,
blacktail.
I think my luck, right, is
Right.
like just
Really good.
transcended. But I went on this 12 or 13 day fly-in horseback hunt for moose in northern British Columbia, maybe a year prior to the one we went on, right? And so I mean, the Cassiar Mountains are like known. This area is known for like
Big moose.
lots of moose, and et cetera, et cetera. And there were 5 of us, I think, hunting in camp. Anyways, long story short, out of 12 or 13 days, I never put my eyes on any moose,
Right.
like none. So that was interesting, right? And then
Did
I got
anybody else in camp? I forgot to ask you that.
two. Let me think. Two. Is it 4 of us? No, two out of the 4. Yeah, 4 of us. 2 out of the 4 killed bulls. So Green Tree, this other guy Brian Call. He killed one. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, me and Hart never even saw one. So I'm like, well, all right. And then I got in a big horse wreck at the end. So I was like, at least I got something to show for my effort.
Right.
And then we go on the hunt. You and I go on, and Trevor. And of course, Trevor's like, I don't know if you had, but Trevor never hunted moose.
I'd
Pretty
never
seen
right?
one in
hunted
person.
moose.
And like within 2 days, he had a big bull down?
3, right?
3.
That was day 3.
Like
Yeah.
third day.
Yeah.
So I think the same day that he had his encounter, I had an encounter with a big bull, like huge, like 60-inch wide. So for Canadian moose,
Yeah, I think
Talking
you saw a
enormous.
huge one in the morning.
right.
How
But then we
close
went
did you
back
get?
and got on him. So not close the first
Right.
time. Probably should have killed him with the rifle,
Yeah.
but we just weren't, I wasn't thinking like that at the time.
We
Went
were
back.
all bow hunting.
How are we looking up there, Sergeant Best? On target, on time, boys! Fire for a flip! Here we go! Set! You heard him! Fire for a flip!
Calling this bull in. Here he comes. It sounds like a bulldozer coming through the woods. And we know it's the same bull. And he's 80 yards away, but he's in the trees and he needs to come up the hill. Well, over the course of time, it took him to do this. Nick is like 200 yards behind us calling. So he's going to come right by. Like I'm convinced of it, But anyways, this darkness kind of began to settle in. The wind shifted and the thermals went downhill and he got our wind. And it was like, I can't imagine an animal could break brush and trees
Wow.
and make that kind of noise running away
Really?
from us. Yeah. So, when you have that in your mind, like that kind of animal's walking around, he's there. Like, I think I have 19 days in those 2 years, like 19 or 20 days in those 2 years hunting moose. I'm like, that's the one I want to kill.
Yeah.
And then on the last day, we found a small one.
Yep.
And I'm like, nah, I'm not. I don't need to shoot one that bad. Like it wasn't that important to me at the time. Right. So yeah, it is what it is, but it was still an awesome hunt.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Yeah.
got a bunch of moose down. It was cool.
I'm still eating moose.
I am also still eating
still
moose.
eating
They're
moose.
enormous.
Yeah.
Well, you loaded up the whole back of that
Truck.
truck. Yeah.
And so did you.
Yeah, so did I.
moose
I mean,
meat.
I brought that whole thing home in the back of
his
my
was more
Jocko.
impressive because can't imagine that
This was
You could
300
even-
pounds heavier than mine.
That might have been the biggest moose to come home in a Tacoma.
If customs is going to make you
True.
unpack that to look at your, like you were fucked. You were never
Oh,
going to
yeah.
repack
I'll
it
tell
the
you
same
what.
way.
Enjoy
I'm gonna-
yourselves.
I'm going to do it again. Like I'm never going to not drive it home because
Oh, yeah, that was-
That
super
is
easy.
the way to go.
Super
Yeah.
easy.
So clutch.
And they're, they throw over the, tarp or whatever. They look in there, sign your paperwork, get you home. No problem whatsoever. I had a great experience getting through there. And the guys
And they usually are
the-
congratulatory. Oh, good job.
Yeah, no, and the guys on the border, the Canadian Mounties, right? They're like, oh, I can't do a Canadian accent, but I'll try. Like,
I felt it coming.
Oh, are you a Black Rifle? Or whatever. It's, yeah, I am. It's like, good day, mate. Whatever it is. I'm like, yeah. So I like handed him a bunch of Black Rifle, and and they were so stoked.
That's
and it was
cool.
both sides, man. It was just so cool because the Mounties, I get DMs all the time from Canadian Mounties, like, man, I love your coffee, love this. So
Well, they can't own a Black Rifle, so they might as well get Black Rifle coffee.
they can.
They can?
I didn't know that either, but yeah, you have like, you have to
Do a lot of
Jump
stuff.
through
do a
hoops.
lot of paperwork, but yeah, you can. It's just,
Well,
it's
that's
a
cool.
lot of paperwork. And, but I think that it's super cool that even up in Canada, they knew exactly who we were, and on the border, like
Super
everybody
cool.
kind of knew. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was pretty awesome, man. It was really, really, it was such a good trip. Nick and those guys. Do you still talk to those guys at all?
Yeah, I feel sorry for those Canadian outfitters. I mean,
Yeah.
dude, the first spring season they missed, I felt bad. We all felt bad. But we're like, they can make it up. Fall's really where they're
Sure.
going to make their money.
Now we're
They had
coming
no
into
fall.
third and fourth
And
seasons.
now-
They had no spring this year. And who knows what's going to happen,
knows? Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many of those,
I know it's
outfits are
probably
going
gonna
to be
be-
able to stick around.
I know it's going to be good moose hunting when we do finally get to go up there.
Absolutely.
It's going to be really good moose hunting.
Yeah.
Right.
No, moose
Where-
hunting or bear hunting or whatever. It's going to
Well,
be
for
off
some
the
of us.
charts.
You need to go back and get a moose.
Yeah.
Does Alaska have the biggest moose, or
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The
The
Yukons.
Alaskan Yukon moose.
The Alaskan Yukon.
Alaska and the Yukon, so part
Right.
of Canada, right? So that's kind of the biggest species. So we were hunting right on the edge of the Yukon, but just inside BC. They were considered Canadian, but obviously the
Crossbreeding.
animals don't know. Yeah,
Right.
but yeah, Alaska, Canada,
okay?
by far the biggest. Yeah. So that moose we saw, like he was 60-inch wide, like that's a Alaskan size moose.
Well, I mean, and
Got
then
it.
mine was like a 54-inch
Oh,
inside.
yeah, no,
side.
it's
Yours,
your-
yours was 54.
Yeah.
54 inside. Yeah.
which is a huge,
It's a huge
Canadian
BC.
moose. Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
he was in regression. I mean, they think he was 10 and a half, 11 years old or something.
Mhm.
And he was in regression.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay. And that had a bullet hole in it, right?
That was hilarious. Yeah, in the paddle.
Yeah, had a bullet hole in the paddle.
So somebody rang his bell.
Yeah.
So if you were to go on like, given the opportunity, where is your greatest chance to shoot a moose, do you think? Outside of a high fence and
I would say probably the Yukon, Northwest
You think?
Territories.
Yeah.
From everything I know. I mean,
right.
and I'm not just saying this because I haven't killed one yet, but like even when I was living up in Alaska, you hunt them during the rut, right? So
Sure.
you're trying to take advantage of some of their cloudiness in the brain for the rut, but it also brings these areas are so huge. The population density of animals are not like people think. They're
And
like,
moose-
oh, you go to Alaska, like there's
Moose are in every
caribou or
corner.
moose everywhere.
Well,
Yeah.
moose are solitary too.
Yeah, it's not true, but certain times of the year they start coming together, and so then you get bigger concentrations. Of course, that ups your chances. So any place you can go where it's roadless and there's less people, there's less intrusion. The animals are just doing what animals do,
Right.
and I just think up there, and you can use you can use helicopters and NWT to kind of fly around, and so you're a
can.
little bit more, you have more access because you're not just flying a plane, having to land on a strip. It gives
Got
you
it.
more options, right, to land in
Yeah.
places. But
Can you do unguided? So can you do?
no,
not
in
as an-
Alaska you can.
You can.
Yes.
Yeah, for moose.
Yeah, for certain species, you can go unguided. So the brown bear hunt, you can't.
Right.
Black bear hunt, you can.
Yeah, it's
Right.
Oh,
So
interesting.
brown bear,
And
sheep,
for
and
moose,
goat.
you can do an unguided
You can.
Alaska
Yep.
trip.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
So I think
didn't
it's
know that.
brown bear,
Goat
sheep,
and sheep.
goat. You have to. Yeah, you would
Have
know.
to have a guide.
Yeah, you have to have a guide
Yeah.
in Alaska. So, which that's cool. It just costs you more money, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you can absolutely. And there's so many. Yeah, I mean, there's moose all over the state in Alaska.
So are you going to
but-
go up there and do guided or unguided for your moose hunt? Are you going to Alaska or are you going to go to BC?
I'm not going to Alaska for. Oh, you mean my next one?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I mean, you got to have
I'm gonna go on
an idea.
I'm going to go on a
moose.
caribou hunt this year.
Seriously?
Yeah, me and my buddy. Just-
Unguided?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you go up there, you hunt enough species, you kind of learn the animal. You don't need to necessarily have a guide. I mean, what a guide.
Where are you going to go?
Probably the Brooks Range.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Above Fairbanks,
Oh, yeah.
above the Arctic Circle, kind of go up
Coolest.
there. And I haven't been back since I left. So I was like, yeah, it's probably time to go back, and
Right.
check it out. Unfortunately, like once I left and, gave up my Alaska citizenship, or residency, I should say, the chances of me like ever hunting a Dall sheep again are probably nil.
Next to zero. Yeah.
Because I just don't want to pay that kind of money for a hunt that I know I can do on my own.
What's that? What's that kind of money? Like, what's it cost there?
Nowadays, probably 16 to 20, 25.
Wow.
Like
Right.
22 plus.
Yeah.
For a Dall sheep?
Yeah.
Yeah, it keeps going up.
Dude, that's the cheap one.
Are you kidding me?
That's the cheapest of the cheap
Yeah,
Why?
that's the
So
cheapest.
why-
of the-
by a long shot.
Why is that so expensive?
So it has to do with availability of the animals, availability of guiding areas, scarcity, and then just a little bit of fadness, like prices come and go based on what some of them people just want.
Mhm.
So, I mean, they can be as, upwards of 45 grand for some of these like bighorn sheeps.
Well, yeah, I've heard that. I've heard the bighorn, depending on like what tags and where,
Yeah.
they can be huge prices for those things.
It can be wild.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I don't know, like, are these individual collectors that are just are they looking for the experience? Or are they looking for the mount? Or are they looking for both?
Yeah, I think it depends. I think it depends on the person. But, with sheep,
Mm-hmm.
so there's 4 species of sheep in North America. And so, to get your Grand Slam is to shoot all 4.
Got it.
So that's a thing, right?
Right.
And so some guys try to chase that.
Mm-hmm.
The ones, to Trevor's point, that are a little harder to access. So, sheep in Canada are going to be harder to access for Americans, more remote, et cetera, et cetera. So like a Dall sheep may be the most prevalent, less expensive. Stone sheep can be really expensive, 55, 60,000. And then like a desert bighorn, you may never draw that tag in the United States.
Right.
But you go to Mexico, people understand that supply and demand, 75,000. So, so if you want, if that's really important to you to kind
your
of fill
thing.
that Grand Slam, then,
Right.
that's worth it to you. If it's
Right.
not, then it just seems like an exorbitant cost,
Yeah.
Um,
But
But-
like you said, like there are guys, and it is totally doable to draw those tags.
Yeah.
You can do
Well,
it. Like
I mean,
it's those are all possible.
yeah, for sure. I mean,
It's not crazy,
I know guys that
but
have drawn the wild buffalo tag here
Yep.
in Utah. Like, it's not impossible.
It's a thing,
Obviously,
but-
it's a thing. And then how many people are really putting in for that too? Like,
a lot.
I mean, the wild buffalo archery, like a lot, but
Yeah.
in the
grand scheme.
grand scheme, not really.
there's just not that many opportunities, right?
No.
That not that many tags every year. So,
There aren't.
It's good to see that Alaska did whatever they did to make it right for that year that,
Yeah.
like you guys missed, that you could go back up there this year. Cause
Oh yeah,
Nice.
yeah, yeah. Fishing
they
game
could
up
have
in
managed that
Alaska.
a couple different ways and made it really difficult
I
on
think
people.
they did the really appropriate thing for the outfitters because they understood that those guys have done a lot of research and put a lot of legwork into keeping the animals really, really healthy. I mean, the bear population is larger than it's been.
Is it larger?
Yeah, and the bear sizes are maintaining or getting larger every year. They keep shooting larger bears, which is
The
telling.
population is increasing and the size of the bears are
Yeah, which means that they're managing, they're literally managing them correctly, right? So it's a healthy population of animals. So when the season got bumped due to all this,
Yeah.
Alaska fishing game decided, all right, well, then we'll just, instead of going every other year in one of the units or in one of the areas for brown bear, they were just like, we'll just do 2 in a row and then go back to the normal cycle.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So they're like, you guys have been doing the right thing for long enough. There's no reason to skip a season.
So
that's
screw you. That's how you guys were able to get on the peninsula then. Yeah.
So how, when, because you were up there for quite a few years, how many brown bears did you?
So I drew 1 tag.
You drew one?
I killed 1 brown bear.
And you can do
13 years.
And you can do one
every 5. Did you put in
5.
every year?
Yeah. So we were able to hunt, as a resident, you were able to hunt certain areas around town, like every year.
Uh-huh.
Obviously.
So you can hunt every year for brown bear.
But you can harvest 1 every 5.
Yeah, if you were successful.
If you were successful,
5 or
1
7.
every 5.
I don't remember anymore.
I think it's 5.
But it was a little harder because, closer to population density, more people, bears are a little more, leery. But yeah, I forget what year it was, but I did draw my tag, and I drew a tag off the road, area I could get to, area I kind of knew, had been in, had some intel.
It's not like the road system is easy.
Unsupported, so you didn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Me and 2 other guys.
Okay.
Yep. And it was.
It's not like the road system's easy. I mean, it's still thick through there.
It's not. But yeah, it was. It's an incredible hunt. I remember telling somebody, it's like, so I'm sitting there. We'd seen some bears, and it was a spring hunt, and we'd seen a giant one day, and he was way up this drainage, up in the snow, laying on his back, just like sleeping, and then he'd wake up and he'd roll around, and I mean, this bear didn't have a care in the world. Just so that'll tell you right there, like his personality, like he's a dominant bear. Like he's not worried about anything. He's like the bear probably in that drainage. And what's cool is I think a buddy a year later went back and killed that bear because it was the same drainage, exact same spot. But anyways, so just couldn't get on these bears, and then the bears we were seeing were too small. And so anyways, we're out cruising the shoreline one evening, and this bear's coming down, and we just beached the boat about half a mile behind him with the wind in our favor. And I just jumped out and started jogging down the beach.
With your bow?
Yeah. And he's coming down, out of the mountains, and I'm coming down the beach. Again, understanding their eyesight isn't great as long as I got the wind.
Yep.
And, shit you do. But so my buddies, I just kind of left them. I was just motivated, Anyways, I got in behind this bear, and this bear's just walking through this open cottonwood bottom through these rolling hills, but like 200 yards from the beach. And I just got in behind him and just started following him. And I just followed this bear, walking behind him. When he stopped, I'd stop. When he'd go, I'd go. And then he finally got to a spot, and he bedded, came up behind a hill, and we're sitting on top of this hill at 65 yards, just watching it. And we probably watched this bear for, it's hard to say exactly, at least 20 minutes, at least, maybe longer. And then eventually he got up, and I had my buddies. I was like, listen, I don't give a fuck about record books, but when this shit goes down, just don't hesitate.
Don't do
just
it.
Shoot him.
Yeah.
No, I said, just don't. The last thing I want to do is
injure a bear.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to do is go after a bear. I mean, these things, because I'd lived there a while. I'd heard these stories. I'd seen the results, like bears going in and button hook on you, and just laying in ambush. And, Cole's he'll tell you all the stories. But anyways, long story short, when it went down, shot the bear, 2 rifle shots, bear ran 65 yards and piled up, just dead. And, but anyways, I distinctly remember before shooting, in my mind, I was like, okay, you're getting ready to go into the bar and pick a fight with the biggest guy, and somebody's going to get hurt at the end of this. Like there's no other outcome than something dies.
Right.
Like me or the bears, like kind of. And so I never, I've shot all these things, and I never had that thought, black bears and everything, like super close, and like never had that thought. But this bear, and I'm cause he's just like hanging out all serene, and I'm like, I'm literally getting ready to go up and poke the bear.
Yeah.
I'm like literally and figuratively. And I'm like, well, this is interesting. Like I never, and, but it's an incredible thing. And then once you get up to these animals,
they're huge.
like so impressive. So I had it in my mind that I wanted this picture of me getting a bear hug from a bear.
Right.
Right. So there's this giant animal laying on the ground, and I just laid down and I brought his big paw up over the top of me, and I like snuggled in like he's giving me a bear hug, and like had these guys take pictures of me because I was like, that's the picture I wanted.
Right.
Of like this giant, like bodybuilding type. Yeah, but fascinating. And so because it was spring, and again, I don't know, but before then I'd never heard anybody talk about eating a brown bear. And so I went to the cultural center there in Kodiak and the biologist, and I asked him, and the biologist said, yeah, we recommend that you at least take some meat and try it. And I felt bad because I'm like, here's this huge, majestic animal, like clearly a lot of meat on it, right? And like just to shoot it for the vanity of shooting it, it just
feels weird.
I'd never done anything like that before, right? And I understand population control, so I don't have an issue with that. But I'm like, listen, in spring, and so I went and talked to the cultural center, and they're like, our natives, so the Alutiiq on Kodiak, they would eat the bear in the spring. They would eat spring bear.
Why?
But a lot. But there was like some like I don't want to say a spirit animal, but they're living on the island with these bears. They wanted to make sure they get along, and so it's just this respect thing that they didn't do it. Well, one in the fall they taste bad because they're eating fish, and it's just the diet they have, so they're not like super appealing. But then in the spring, when these bears get out of the den, they're just walking around eating grasses and stuff. I mean, maybe they find a dead deer or something on the beach, but so they're like a beef cow. They're just like getting their system going.
Yeah.
So the guy said, he goes, if you're successful and get a bear, this guy at the Alutiiq, was it the Alutiiq Cultural Center? He goes, he is like third generation on that island or fourth or whatever. He said, I would be honored if like you were to provide me a piece, because he says, growing up, I never had it. And he grew up in this native village on the island. So anyways, long story short, I kill this bear, and I'm getting this bear hug, and I'm like, this bear doesn't stink. Like, some animals stink. Like, in the rut and stuff, like kind of stink, And I've killed black bears before that had been like rolling around and, carrion, dead like things. Dead, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've killed deer that smelled worse than this bear. And so, crazy, dude. And I'm like, I am absolutely taking some meat. Well, because we were only about 250 yards maybe off the beach, we could bring the boat into to the beach. So I didn't have to walk but 250 yards. So that's by law, you have to take, no matter what you want to do with it, you have to take full skull and the full hide.
Right.
And so then I got this animal laying there, and I'm like, holy shit, like this meat looks and smells amazing. So I took back straps and tenderloins, which are enormous, right? And then these guys helped me. I got this crazy picture, but they helped me struggle to my feet. And then I carried it all to the beach, while another guy went and got the boat. Got it home.
Hide, skull, and meat?
All of it. Yeah.
Dude, so a bear hide weighs as much as I do.
And it was the end of April.
Absurd.
It was the last couple days in April. And the reason I remember that is because about a week later I was going to a Cinco de Mayo party that my buddies from work were having, And so I show up, and the one guy throwing the party was a guy that had helped me on the hunt, and so we're high-fiving this and that. And well, everybody brings, something to eat. So I brought this meat, and I didn't tell anybody what it was.
Tacos.
And I grilled it. I'd marinated it before, and I grilled it, just a piece of backstrap,
Yeah.
And I kind of cut it up and this and that. And then I just walked around the party and just, hey, anybody want any meat, Oh, man, that was good, So I go back for a second course and like, oh, man, what was that? And I said, brown bear. And there were some dudes that got seriously pissed. Like, really? I thought we were going to fucking throw down.
Why?
And they're like, hey, man, I don't eat predator. It's fucking disgusting. This and I'm like, well, you ate it. You liked it.
You wanted more.
And like, I'm trying to like expose people like to this thing, right? Like, you should at least try it,
Yeah.
So then I gave it to this guy at the cultural center. And like, he was so honored that I would give him, this piece of brown bear. And I was so stoked that I would be the guy to provide him like the first brown bear he'd ever had in his life, So now jump ahead a couple of years. My wife is helping our friends out at this remote lodge, and they're running bear hunts out of there, brown bear hunts out of there. And so I told Jules, I said, yeah, here's the deal. Because it was in the spring. I said, hey, here's the deal. Like, these guys are going to kill these bears, and they're not going to want the meat They're not going to know what they got.
Right.
I said, so, tell our friend Lee that, because normally if they can, they'll get the whole bear on the boat because they're hunting from shore. I said, when you get back,
that's a big animal.
I said, make sure you ask, but make sure that they don't want the meat. And they literally sign a piece of paper, right? And I said, take every backstrap and tenderloin you can, unless it just absolutely reeks.
Right.
And so she took backstraps and tenderloins from 2 brown bears from 2 clients, had been successful. And then when the third one in camp, if I recall, when he shot his, he's like, hey, I see that you're taking the meat, this and that. She goes, oh yeah, it's good. You should try it. And so her and our friend's wife, they cooked some that night, like as just like I had done, like as an appetizer. And they're like, oh my God, this is good, this and that. Well, the other 2 guys wanted their meat back. Well, they clearly didn't know my wife. And she goes, fuck you. You signed it over to me. You should have known before that, And but
I can see Jules getting a little.
But I was like, starting a trend. I was like, yeah, at least try it,
Yeah.
Dude, like Cole's told me some cool, like, boiled bear skull recipes, and like there's ways to cook that stuff. It's like,
I'd want to do that.
I'm up for anything,
no, but
man.
the meat off the thing, like he's like, no, it's like, I don't see the problem here.
Yeah, so the one thing I say about bears is that it's really specific because, like I said, some may just reek and taste like shit, and others, are okay. But I think it's all their diet.
Yeah, I mean, like Dud talks about the hunt he did with Dusty, where they that grizz that they shot in Canada, and he'd been like rolling around on a whale carcass.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, I would not eat that. Like that's not.
No, and I don't
that's
think
not
anybody would.
No,
I don't think
they had a hard
anybody
enough
would.
time skinning it.
Right.
Yeah,
It's like that was miserable.
yeah.
So here's a question, John, because you're a winter warfare survival instructor. Was that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
So how many years did you do that?
So I did that for 13 years up in Alaska. And then I'd done it a few years at the team, kind of part-time, like helping out.
Do you ever watch
Oh God.
do you ever watch like these stupid survival shows like Naked and Afraid or any of those?
Bring up Naked and
I
Afraid.
got to, man. I got to, because
You ready to be naked and afraid?
This is one of the only things that I can watch with my kids because they blur out the it's family friendly. It's shows, people
It's
in these
mostly
survival
entertainment.
scenarios. It's mostly entertainment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had, what's her name? Zara.
Laura Zara.
Yeah,
Zara,
we had Laura on one of the shows. So what's your take on these things? Because to me, I've watched a few of them now because I can watch them with the girls, and it's like it's just good family fun. Like, some of these people are suffering, man. Like, I know, and everybody here knows how painful sleep deprivation is. Like, it is, like, I will go without food any day of the week, any fucking day of the week. But take away my sleep and it's fucking painful. And my take on that is, I see some of those people and what they're talking about is sleep in these survival situations. So that tells me I think it's fucking real. Do you think it's real, or do you think it's staged? Do you watch it?
You mean
do
the,
you watch
the,
any of
the,
these?
the show?
Yeah.
So, I mean, full disclosure, I don't think I've ever watched a full episode.
Got it. Right.
But it's it's real to a point.
Right.
And here's, I'll put the, kind of the disclaimer on. So if you and I are out there naked and afraid, right? With no camera people, no producer,
Right.
no any medical staff, nothing like that. Like, you're really
On a
really
literal-
naked and afraid.
literally and figuratively hanging it out there.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think, so I've been a part of, some different events that have been filmed for TV, and they do a good job. But listen, the reality is you're an idiot if you go do this on your own. Right. Like, there's a reason that we've been wearing loincloths for a very long time. Like, so I like to say clothing is your first line of defense from the elements, right? It's your armor from the elements. Like, I think they have to do it to a certain extent. Right. And I can't speak for all the shows, but you also have to understand there is somebody there filming, and that guy or gal is probably not going to let the other person like completely die.
Sure.
But they're probably some fucking form of masochist to sit there and watch him, like, or sadist go through this shit. Right.
Yeah.
But my point is, it's got to be somewhat controlled because it is a TV show.
Right.
And so what people shouldn't do is go, well, me and my buddy are going to go do this for a week out in the middle of the Frank Church wilderness and see how it works out for us. Because it might not, like, there's no safety net. You know, this whole risk mitigation thing, like we try to put all this shit into place to like, okay, it's going to be dangerous, but we're going to do all these things to kind of mitigate that.
Right.
Like, that's what they do for those shows, right? Yeah. So, but no, dude, you can't fake sleep deprivation.
You can't.
And I would rather go a week without eating than a week without sleeping.
Any day.
Any day.
Any day. Like any day, like, because it's so painful to be like 3 or 4 days without sleep or like an hour.
It's terrible for you.
Nasty. It's so bad. And so I've been watching these things and I'm like, oh man, I am so thankful for the level of sleep that I actually get, which is not a lot.
No,
but
I was going to say, we've talked about this.
Yeah, we talked a lot about this. I'm going to pour some water. So the questions that I have, or
now
they're
that you
like
can
more
without
statements,
freaking out.
Questions is, I've been thinking about doing this thing. You know, the Boulder Survival School?
No.
You've never heard of it?
No.
So
in Boulder, Colorado? Or?
No, it's here in Utah. Have you ever heard of it?
Down south.
Yeah, down south. So you can do, I think you can do, it's like 5, like you can do a week, you can do 2 weeks. And I think they have like 3-week
Oh, wow.
evolutions.
Are we
You can
like
do
surprised
straight
going
up
tonight?
primitive skills.
Yeah.
Like bow drill, whole 9. Because in our survival schools, we never learned how to do the bow drill. Like we never went through that. Did you guys?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah. No,
we did it there. And then we did that 3-day evolution.
You did a bow drill in Alaska?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And ours was in February, so it was impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It
February in Alaska, how, like, was it impossible, truly?
Yeah, even the air's wet.
Yeah, I don't want to tell you it's a parlor trick because it's not, right? Like it's a real thing, friction, obviously,
it's doable.
And you create fire. But depending on the environment you're in,
it can be,
i.e. the woods that you have at your disposal, and then, you know, how wet or dry, and then even the environment around you, like the atmosphere, like it all plays into it. So my statement would be, just because you could make, say, a bow drill fire in Arizona doesn't mean that you can take that skill and transfer it to, say, you know, the Alaska Peninsula on your brown bear hunt. Like,
right.
It may not, like there comes a point of diminishing returns where you just can't do it because either the materials or the environment are just not suitable, right?
And then looping back to Laura Zara.
Yeah.
She was at Winter Strong and she mentioned something that, like, I've been asked, do you carry fire starting stuff? I'm like, yeah, I carry 2 Bic lighters.
Yeah.
Because they never fail. And she's like, yeah, I also carry a couple Bic lighters because they never fail. Like, friction is great. It's ridiculous.
No, I think
it's ridiculous.
I think that it's interesting.
It's really cool to learn as a skill.
Yeah, yeah.
Really cool.
I have legitimately tried it.
Freaking cool.
But when I went through the Special Forces, you know, SEER school, for instance, they didn't teach us how to do that. And the other one was
you're
just
saying
like
ours is harder?
Counter-terror. This was just counter-interrogation.
That's what I heard.
Ours is just, the other one was just like counter-interrogation. Like, they taught you a bunch of other bullshit, but you know, how to catch fish with, you know, safety pins.
I remember that one.
Well, I've got my, you know, my opinions on survival. Like I did, you know, I talked about this the other week about survival, and there's a big difference between kind of planning for realistic scenarios to happen when you're out in the mountains, or a long-term primitive living solution. So like, you know, we may have all grown up like, you know, dreaming anyways of, you know, Robinson Crusoe and being stranded on a desert island. And like, I'm out there for
my side of the mountain. You remember that one?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So, you know, for a long period of time where you're building a cabin and you're building a wicker basket and catching fish and, you know, smoking meat and all this. So that's like primitive living.
Yeah.
Kind of like, maybe to some of your shows you mentioned, right? But for the most part, we're looking to, you know, survive a night out or, you know,
not die.
Stabilize a buddy who's hurt and then, you know, call for an extract, you know, from some SAR aircraft or something like this. That's more realistic, probably going to happen. Yeah. And at that point, it's like, yeah, you should have a lighter. You should have multiple lighters. You should have
emergency blankets,
multiple ways, you know, to create fire with, you know, different tinders. So be it gunpowder from a bullet or some prefab tinder or, you know, duct tape or whatever it is, like the ability to, you know, get in a survival blanket, you know, like some basic things. And I think people, to include myself, like we jump we jump ahead. I'll circle back here. Will we jump ahead to this more romanticized version of it, where the reality is it's normally a short-term thing. We need to, prevent ourselves from becoming hurt from the environment, from the snow, from the rain, or stabilize somebody who's, blood pressure dropping because they broke their leg and, maybe going into shock, like some basic stuff to prevent an incident from becoming a tragedy, right?
Yeah.
What I think is cool is the schools you're talking about. So one, they're fun, like kind of class 2 fun, right? Type 2 fun.
Yeah.
But the confidence that it gives you when you're out there and you can survive for a week or 2 weeks and you know how to do a bow drill and you know how to build that wicker basket and you know how to, put a shelter over your head that doesn't leak, that confidence then is, what you can carry forward into the Elk Mountains or, going on your fishing trip or floating down your river in the middle of Idaho where you're like, man, if I put a hole in the raft and I gotta eddy out here and, spend 3 days before somebody flies over and finds us, like, we're not going to die. Matter of fact, this might not even suck. This may be just a great story I get to tell my buddies when we're drinking, next month.
It's like staying super.
That's why it's cool to build those skills.
It's like training hard too. Like if you have that in your back pocket and all right, I'm fit enough not to be hurt by this physical encounter, then you can stretch yourself out a little bit further and feel comfortable there.
Right.
Well, and you're not willing to pop smoke so quick, right? If it, if that incident happens, you're like, I can handle this. Like we have the not only the tools, but the knowledge, and we can make this work, But those schools would be fun. I've been to ones in the past, but
it'd be interesting because we do a ton of stuff with Mike up at Fieldcraft. It'd be interesting because I've seen a lot of these guys now, like Aaron's doing that. Map. Was it
Map and compass, like orienteering stuff?
Yeah, orienteering for hunting.
Yeah.
And we kind of take things like that for granted.
Yeah, we do
absolutely take it for granted.
Yeah, because it's like,
of course I know how to read a map.
Of course I know how to read a map. Of course I know how to program my GPS and do all this stuff with it. It's like, we take all of that as just, I've got a sat phone, I've got a GPS, you know why? Because I also know that I might fucking need it because I'm going to find myself into a situation. There's zero doubt in my adult life, there will be circumstances, plural, where I will need a sat phone. Even if it's just to call my family and be like, hey, what's up? What's going on? How are you guys doing?
Well,
right?
especially when you interject
headlamps.
yourself into those environments repeatedly, right?
Yeah.
You're just doing a day hunt. Well, that's why I have 2 headlamps.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because sure shit, I'm going to be out there and it's going to get dark.
I hear this. Well, I don't hear it a lot because I'm not necessarily in the survival arena, but I keep my finger on the pulse of it because I really like it. It's a fun hobby.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of people like to watch football, they like to watch baseball, they like to follow basketball, whatever it is. I think it's cool for people when they're discussing, their loadout for their overnight kit or, okay, I'm going on my 3 to 5 day hike. I want to know what type of frame I'm going to use. And or on my hunt where it's like, I'm going to be out there for 5 days. I'm going to be covering about 30 miles. I'm going to be doing, a clover leaf, but I need X, Y, and Z. And when you start going down the rabbit hole on both like gear and skill, so when you start incorporating your overland skills with your communication skills and you're going out, and you're doing some hunting or fishing or whatever it is, it's fucking awesome,
it's
man.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's super fun. And I think for guys, they think, well, you've obviously lumped yourself into prepper world. Like, no, like that's not necessarily what I'm doing either. I'm just having fun my own way. I'm just doing my own thing. Would you? And that's my question to you: is even though you're a survival instructor, would you classify yourself as a prepper?
No, matter of fact, I understand it and I certainly am prepared for a lot of things, but I do not consider myself a prepper. Not even close. I consider myself practical and I consider myself somebody who plans for contingencies, right? And this isn't just semantics, like this isn't just words, but like I don't necessarily see myself as a prepper. Now,
I don't want to throw those people under the bus.
No, I'm not throwing them under the bus.
By saying, I think it's better to be trained and prepared than to be a prepper and have all the things.
Listen,
they're LARPers. They're live action role players that buy a lot of
for
stuff.
the
and I think
apocalypse, for
maybe
the
that's
apocalypse.
where the negative connotation comes in. I mean, the reality is most of us could probably associate us surviving some close call and being alive today because of planning and contingencies that we put in place in our past, right? And so does it become a way of life? Absolutely. Is it paranoia? Absolutely not.
Right.
I've had to employ some of this stuff and maybe you have too. And so that's where my perspective comes in of, hey, you know what? The reality, like I say, what if weighs a lot? Okay. You can go down this rabbit hole of like, oh my God, what if there's no more, gasoline for the rest of our lives? Well, we're all fucked and we're going back to the horse-drawn carriage. Okay. Don't go down that road.
You can contingency yourself into the asteroid's going to hit Earth
in
type of
absolute
scenario,
paranoia.
right? Yeah.
So
for
just
sure.
plan for realistic things. So if I'm going in the mountains with me and my buddy or by myself, I'm going to plan for realistic scenarios. Now, the difference is your experience, right? And your skill level and all that is going to factor into what I consider a suitable, we'll call it survival kit, and what somebody who's maybe just starting out considers a suitable survival kit.
Right.
Or you go into an environment, like I don't particularly like the jungle. I've spent a lot of time there. I've been to some jungle survival
You and
schools.
I both.
I hate it.
I hate it too.
I'm going to probably plan a little bit different for that
Not fun.
than in the mountains. In the mountains in winter, bizarrely enough, I feel very comfortable. And I can, because I've been there, right? And I've kind of lived through it. And so I know what I need. And so everybody's got to figure it out for themselves. And so you're going to start with a lot and then slowly you pare it down. But to kind of get back to your point, it's fun. And literally, listen, I have not fallen too far from the tree. Like I'm doing the same shit that I did as a little kid. They just pay me to do it now, right? Like I've turned it into a profession. I've been one of those lucky people like the rest of us. But we all have to kind of figure it out for ourselves, but it is fun. And then if it does ever happen, and if we keep going in the wilderness and you keep overlanding, you're going to get a flat tire, right? Sure. You keep going out there, your boat's going to get a hole in it on the side of the river. Like these things are going to happen. And so when you're prepared and confident, and I think we have forgotten where we started from. So if there's 10 steps to get to mastery, and let's just say we're at step 8, right?
Right.
When we go to teach somebody something, because we just assume that everybody understands all the things we grew up with in our adult lives, we're going to start at step 3 or 4. And honestly, the first 3 steps are maybe the most important to people because it's foundational.
When you grab the map and you're like, yeah, north is this way.
Yeah. And so I'm going to get on it. Can I get on a soapbox here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, I like soapboxes.
Yeah, me too.
Now you have to stare at the camera.
But one of the things that can become irritating to people that know. So as an example, like shooting, I'm sure you see all kinds of gun handling on IG and stuff, and you're like,
I don't watch
this guy.
I can't watch it.
Yeah, so that's my point, right? That's my point because you understand
it's an eyesore.
Because you understand that there's a lot of poor information out there, right?
Yeah.
And so what I see is somebody. Let's just say somebody masters a bow drill and they master it in Arizona, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they master it in Arizona in the summertime. And then all of a sudden they go on social media and they start espousing how to do bow drills. And people that don't know any better, all of a sudden think that I can go up to Alaska, I can go to Canada, I can go to Minnesota in the winter and I can do this thing, right? Where true mastery comes in is when you sit there and say, hey, I'm going to teach you 3 ways. There's actually 12. Here's the 3 best that my experience has shown. These are the 3 that are probably the most universal. The places you should start, right? So build a good foundation. And then over time, you can start to branch out and start doing other things. But a lot of people are like, I learned this one thing and it's super cool, so I'm going to teach you how to do it. So as an example, Dudley with archery, okay? He's been there and done that. He's seen every mistake and how to correct it under the sun.
Right.
So he can look at me, you, and Trevor and dissect us all slightly different ways and give us 3 different ways of doing the same thing to meet either where we are developmentally or how we're going to process that information. That's a true coach, right? That's a true master. That's a true instructor. And so many people don't do that anymore that, everybody's seeking knowledge probably more so now than ever. So hunting sales are through the roof, gun sales are through the roof. Like everybody's freaked out because of the virus and trying to take care of themselves. They don't know where to start. They don't know where to go for that information. And it's such a noisy
Super noisy.
It's such a noisy, kind of market out there that people don't know where to go to get that information.
Well, what did you say earlier? There's a huge amount of information, right, out there, a ton of knowledge, but everybody wants a shortcut to the expertise and the wisdom, and they don't want to take the time to get there.
Yep.
And it does, and it's
so I want to give credit to who said that. So Snyder said that. And I give him credit every time I say it because it's great. And basically he said, listen, nowadays knowledge is easy to acquire. Wisdom is just as difficult. So we were talking jumping as an example. Like you can't get 8,000 jumps if you don't do 8,000 jumps. Now you may be able to start at step 3 because of information and people can help you, but you still don't get 20 years of experience without getting 20 years of experience, you know? And people want to, I hate this fucking word, but people want to, I have all these life hacks and like, I can help you lessen the steepness of the learning curve. But at the end of the day, you still have to climb the hill.
It's time
you
and
still
repetition.
Have to put, and you can't get around that, right? And so I love that there's information out there, but it's hard to vet that information anymore, right? And so you've seen it in the firearms industry. I've seen it, with survival and clothing and things like that because we know better.
Yeah.
And so it's more difficult than ever. As much as there's a lot of information, it's more difficult than ever to find out what information do I need and where do I start?
Well, it's the diet pill society, right? I want to take a pill that solves my overeating issue. And it's like, well, if you solve your overeating issue, then you won't have to take the pill. But it's much more difficult to say no to your food habits in yourself. It's much more difficult to tell yourself no than it is to just fix it with a solution of, a pill. And I think that's the same thing with skills. Like I've spent my entire life acquiring specific skills. And I was explaining this to somebody the other day where I like things that take me years. You can't just like jump into them and become proficient within
go to a course,
a month.
Yeah.
That honestly does not really hold a lot of interest to me. It really doesn't. I spent my entire adult life trying to be what I would feel as an artisan of war, right? So a warrior is somebody that can, lead and direct and win in a fight, right? Like, and that's on a repeating cycle, and then teach others to do the same. Yep. What happens is that people don't quite understand that last piece either, where it's like, yes, you can be individually effective as a soldier, right? But to become a true artisan, you have to be able to participate in the exchange of information. You have to be able to teach or show somebody what you're doing. And that's where wisdom comes in, because if you can't communicate it to someone else, it dies, right? And that skill, when it dies with you, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it took me years to the point of, starting on that entire process of like an infantryman, and then looking at it from a special forces soldier, and then going on and becoming like all of these different things, doing different selections and courses, and then teaching, and then saying, okay, I have to do something else. Once you get to that point, and honestly, like I got to that point where I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. Like I really can't. And I think I was like, looking at 40, and maybe I was like having a midlife crisis or something, but it was like, being a professional in the warrior class of America, I don't think that's conducive to a successful family life. Like 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Right. And, so you have to kind of shift. And then those other skills, like I was picking up skills in the background of that, because you need these sub skills that build your macro skills. Yep. They're like, you got to be a proficient shooter, and you got to be a proficient tactician, and you've got to get all this time and repetition.
Got to be a communicator. Got to be able to do this.
Excellence is like, it's never ends. And then I was like, I had like hobbies over here. It was like, I like running rivers and like roasting coffee. That's pretty cool too. And then you have like these hobbies, and I'm like, okay, well now I can run a river. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where my bifurcation of life was like. I was like, all right, well, I got to do something else, because I don't really want to be a gunfighter. So I've got to go, I can take this other thing that I really love, and I can like try to go down the mastery level of this thing. I had no, idea that I was going to even manage 500 people. I'll roast some coffee. I'm going to put it out there. Tell some dick jokes on the internet. I'll figure that out when I get there.
Cross that bridge when I come to it.
I think when you start to teach is when you kind of begin to go down this road of real mastery and figuring it out, because you have to have all those personal skills, and then you bring it, you slowly build up and, okay, I want to be good at what I do. Now I want to be good in the group. Now I want to lead the group. Right. And then when you start teaching diverse groups is where you really, I think, it like that's the finishing school for the person to kind of get to that point of mastery. Like if you can do that and effectively communicate to a broad group of different people with different kind of, experiences or learning traits, then I think you really do become that.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you're like, okay, what else is there for me here?
Well, I remember that point in Afghanistan. Iraq was different, but in Afghanistan, my first group of recruits, when I was sifting through who was trying out for the unit and who wasn't, it was, physical, obviously, but then, who can read? So then it was like, well,
yeah, that's
who doesn't need glasses, or who do I need glasses in order to correct their vision? And then who can read? Like who can read? And then, oh, well, I have to teach these guys how to read some basic English. So that's like literally day one, step one is, guys, we got to learn some basic English just across the board, because we got a lot of maps and a lot of shit we got to look at. It's going to be in English.
It's all going to be in the same language.
Right. So it's like step one, you can't just go straight to the fun soldiering stuff, right? You got to be like, all right, we're going to learn to read a little bit of English, and then we're going to be like, got to learn some numbers, got to learn some letters. But that's kind of like, you got to start there. But that's really difficult when you're starting there, when like, I've got to get from here all the way over to, I'm going to do a multi-mode infill, simultaneous multi-breach point entry that's also at night coordinated with air on a complex target where people are going to be shooting back at us.
And people,
by the way, I'm going to try really hard not to get anybody shot. I'm going to try really hard not to get anybody shot. Like I'm going to really try hard not to get anybody shot.
Yeah.
Let's start to read first, fellas.
When I decided to, retire from the military, like I just got to the point where one, physically, it was just, I'd lost a step. It's hard to keep up with the young guys. And I just felt like, you always say like you want to train the people to replace you. Like I felt like I'd done that. And then I literally felt like I wasn't like, I don't want to say I was dying inside, but like I knew my job so well that it wasn't a challenge anymore. Yeah. And so I needed that. Right. And so then I stepped into, I didn't know it, but I stepped into the world of business. And, so that was like going back into the deep end, treading water with bricks in your hands. And, but that's where it's fun. And I think you have to continue to challenge yourself. Right. I don't know how we got down this road, but the people that are looking to get knowledge and like acquire some of these skills, it's more difficult than ever, even though there's more information than
You're
ever,
right. You're absolutely right. That's why I think it's one of the things that we've, try to turn people onto is guys like you, because you put out a litany of different videos on gear,
or Mike,
Mike,
Aaron.
Like these guys are subject matter experts. They're real subject matter experts.
But people need to be careful, because I think I get asked it all the time about a range of subjects. Everybody seems to want a program to get them to a success point,
right?
Not understanding that it's just a process that never ends. There is no finish line to any of this.
No,
right?
It never ends.
No, it doesn't. And if you think it does, then you're looking really myopically at a finish line that doesn't exist.
Well, it ends,
but we all end at the same place. When you stop breathing is when it's
exactly
done.
When the spark of life ends, like it ends with.
But everybody wants this program that's designed for their ease of use and a quick way to get to whatever end goal it is. Like, all right, so you probably get asked, like, what's the correct gear I need for an elk hunt in Montana that's occurring between the 21st and the 28th of September? Ready, go. Like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
How fucking tall are you?
Yeah.
What's your fitness
how much
level?
do
Are you
you
hunting?
weigh?
Are you hunting alone? Are you hunting off an ATV? Like, what are you doing? Like,
Right.
people don't come at these things from step one. They come at it from that dude on the internet did this thing and he looked successful and I want to do that. So if you don't parrot that back to me in information that fits my end goal in my head, then I'm just going to go to the next guy and ask until I get the information I want.
And maybe I'm an asshole because
no, you're not.
If somebody asks me a question, almost inevitably, I ask them 6 back. Because I can't, there's no I don't want to give a cookie cutter answer. It's like, oh, I want this thing. And I ask 6 or 7 questions back for context. And then I can maybe answer a little better, right? And so it's like, again, so many people want that easy button.
But specifically, say with fitness, Michael Blevins put something out. He goes, look, so many people out there are these fitness coaches, right?
Yeah.
These, coaches. And if you ask a coach for help and they don't immediately respond with 10 or 15 questions,
exactly,
fucking run.
No, that was a great, I think he posted that, right? That was a great post.
Run away. Because that person doesn't give a shit about you.
Yeah,
they're trying to sell a product.
Yep.
And that product is probably them.
Which is a good
For
segue
real.
into a new coffee we like to call Teamwork. It's a great white shark being ridden by a Sasquatch operator with UDTs. If you notice, I've got UDTs here, gentlemen.
Yeah, no, that's why.
It's for us.
Right?
It's for us Navy folk.
Yeah, it's for you Navy folk. Little some NVGs
and laser beams.
And laser beams coming out of its eyes. This is Teamwork. It'll be available as a limited time offer, everyone. It's a fantastic coffee. Actually, it's one of my favorite coffees. It's one of my favorite designs.
It took teamwork.
It did. It took teamwork to do this. And to be fair, it was a collective of people. So it was me, myself, and I.
I feel like I came up with the UDT shorts.
Thank you for bringing those back to a new generation.
I came up with concept, which is like, I want a Sasquatch riding a great white shark. Matt Best came up with the name, Teamwork. Trevor put the UDTs on him. And then,
he was
bing, bang, boom. There you go. That's Teamwork. It's a limited time offer. It's not in the exclusive coffee subscription, but it is in the limited time offer. Go out and follow John Barklow because he has one of the most interesting Instagram pages ever. Right, John? Do you still only have one post on there?
No, I've got like 50.
Oh, you got 50 on there? You capitulated to yourself?
Well, and they're all in the barn.
They're all in the barn. I know. You're doing reviews.
I used to have a cat picture.
I know.
So I told somebody this the other day. Like I had this cat picture.
Then you took a lot of shit.
Well, because everybody's giving me a hard time, and I'm like, all right, I'll post. So I posted a cat picture because why wouldn't I? Like of me and
you
a
have
cat.
a giant Mancoon, right?
I do. And then eventually Dudley's ribbing me, and he's like, dude, you need to post another picture. Well, in the process of me trying to post the second picture, I deleted the first.
It was hilarious.
So then there was only one picture. Well, more people commented on me deleting the first. So then I said, well, okay, I'm only going to ever have one picture on Instagram. So I did that for a few times. And then, it
was pretty funny.
Yeah. It was kind of my thing. Like you have to have a thing, right?
You got to
be different.
You got to have a thing.
Yeah.
Well, John, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Obviously, this is Free Range American. Go out, check him out, check out his gear reviews. He's always cruising around with John. You're always cruising around with Schneider and Trevor and all these other weirdos. Hopefully, we'll do some hunting this fall.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
good.
man. See you, buddy.
Thank you.